let's talk about it. So, if you've ever felt like life has been running you instead of you running your life, tonight we're doing a reset. You didn't even know that you needed. So, we're taking energy, routines, peace, and yes, the choices that shape your money and your life. So, settle in. This one's for you. Tell me in the chat where you're watching from and what's one word that describes how you're feeling right now. So for me, I'm feeling at peace. I had an overwhelming day today because, as you know, I work in human resources, but I'm also an instructor and a financial coach. And I deal with problems all day, or I try to find solutions to problems for individuals. So for me, I realized that, I have it really good, that I've built up my life where I've overcome a lot of the struggles, and my goal is to be of service to others, to help you all solve problems and to understand that there is a brighter side to the rainbow. So, whenever I'm feeling stressed out, I like to breathe. In moments where I'm scattered or burnt out or disconnected, that my thoughts and ideas, they don't stay in one area. Um, and because I'm a financial coach, guess what? Those that when my piece is off, it shows up in my money too. And it's difficult for me to focus. And I was even drained the prior weekend. And I was like, you know what? I don't feel like budgeting. But I got it done after I took some time away. So sometimes we have to take a step back when we're feeling stressed out so that others don't feel that our piece is off. And then when your piece is off, you need to have some type of outlet that can help you get back on track. And for me, I've taken that time for lunch. I walk away, I go sit out on my patio so that I'm not overwhelmed and exhausted at the end of the day. I go look at the trees, I take that my focus off of the computer and my phone, and I just reset myself. Sometimes I even go for a walk. What I do in the morning to reset my focus and to have my peace time is I walk in the morning on the treadmill, or I'll go swimming like I'll probably do tomorrow. And that's my time. I'm not interacting with anyone else. It's just me, my mind, my thoughts, focusing on my breathing. Because if you don't focus on your breathing in the pool, it's not going to end up good. But I take my exercise as my time for me to refocus and reset. I'm disconnected from others, I'm disconnected from technology, I'm one with nature. And it's very rare that we get those moments in society today. Everything is fast paced. You're either on TikTok or YouTube or whatever it is. And technology is how we exist and how we get things done. So being with nature in the pool helps me center my peace. And I'm inviting you to do that with me, to find your center piece again. Now, it's not easy, it does take practice. I have invited my husband into do yoga with me so he can, get rid of all those distractions from the world. And he was like, that's just not something that I'm comfortable with doing. So for some individuals, it may even be journaling. So you take that time to journal, write, get your thoughts out of your head so that you can find what peace looks like for you. I'm going to tell you a little personal story. So I was at my sister-in-law's house and I wasn't talking. I was just sitting and she was like, Annette, what's wrong? And I was like, oh, nothing. I'm just in my head. And she was like, that's not a good place to be. And that has stuck with me for the past 10 years, that I need to get out of my head. And I encourage you to do that as well, so that you can have conversations with others. And and get out of your head to reduce that stress that you have. Because when thoughts constantly run through your mind, you don't get an answer by not talking. So, having that conversation and finding a way to de stress on a daily basis, even for 5 minutes, can help you reset and refocus your life. For me, like I said, it's exercising, but for you, it could be anything else. It could be cooking, it could be baking, it could be going to get your nails done. Just make sure it's in your budget. You look at your life right now, tell me one thing that's draining you the most. Is it your habits? Is it your routine? Is it your energy? Is it your spending? Is it your mindset? You don't have to answer that right now, but it's helpful for you to identify what that one thing is that's draining you. So there's one thing that I have that I wear on a daily basis. It's my aura ring. So my aura ring tells me when I'm being stressed out. And I didn't know that why I was so stressed out, why I was so exhausted at the end of the day. And I found that it was conversations that I was having. Now, not just those general conversations that I was having with others, I found that there's a transition period that I have to have. And that transition period is when I'm coming home from work. And then when I actually get home, I need a transition. I need a time for me to decompress and de stress. And I found that when I came home from work, I was engaged in conversations with my family members, and my aura ring was telling me that I was stressed out. So I found that, okay, there's a time where I need to just not have conversation with anyone until I have decompressed for the day. And I had to articulate that to my family members to say, hey, when I get home, I need 10 minutes of silence. I understand that I've had a drive home, but that wasn't enough for me because driving is stressful, y'all, especially in Florida. So I had a conversation with my family to say, hey, when I get home, give me 10 to 15 minutes to decompress and de stress so that I can ensure that my heart rate is lowered and so that I'm ready to have the conversations, so that I am not distracted, so that I don't feel frustrated or stressed out, and so that I am fully engaged in the conversation that we're having. I realized this was a cause of stress for me, and I look back to when I was a child, and my mother would come home, and when she would come home, I would be at the window looking for her to get out of the car, and she would sit in her car for 15 minutes. And I'm like, why is she sitting in the car? And I'm like, it's because she didn't want to have a conversation with me. She wanted to just be at peace. And I feel the same way. And once I realized that, and I was like, I understand why she sat in the car. And because I was able to articulate that with my family members, they were able to respect those boundaries that I set in place. And so now when I get home, I may be listening to a book or something like that. And my husband, he will not come out. He'll say, I'll wait until you finish that chapter or until you go and you've settled down for the day, and then we can have a conversation. So again, you have to set those boundaries with others so that they know that there's something that's triggering you or stressing you out that's causing you to not be engaged. If you don't articulate that and tell others, then your stress level is going to be high and you're not going to be able to reduce it. So again, find where you need peace at so that you can reset and refocus for that new environment that you're entering in or the new conversation that you're going to have. Because if you find that you aren't able to reset, then you're constantly in a high level of stress. And that's not only going to be draining on your mind, your mental health, but it's also going to be draining on your body. And it can cause other health related problems as well. So ensure that you find that time to find that peace where you have that time to reset and refocus. So let's walk through the reset framework, because there is a way for you to reset your life. And this is what I use with my clients and also what I use with myself. Step one is to stop. Not forever, not dramatically. You just want to pause long enough to see what's actually happening. And when I did that, because my aura ring was telling me, hey, Annette, you're really stressed out, I was able to identify how long I needed to stop. And then step two, you need to name it. You need to name what exactly is draining you. Again, like for me, it was conversations, and it was too many commitments that I had. So I had to limit my commitments. For me, it was, I like to do a lot of things, and one of the things is I like to stay busy because my mind constantly going. And if I'm not doing something, then I'm like, what am I doing with my life? But I found out that it was affecting my family and those interactions that I was having with others, and I had to create balance. It was overcommitment for me. And for you, it could be mindless spending, it could be saying yes when you need to say no. And I'll tell you this, it is very hard to say no. I had to learn to say no, and I had an executive coach to tell me how to say no. Whenever I would receive an email at work and I would say, yes, I'll get this to you today, or I'll get it to you by the end of the week. But that was my timeline that I was putting on myself. And my coach at the time said, ask that person, when do they need it? I was imposing deadlines on myself when I didn't need to impose those deadlines. And when I asked the individual who sent me a request, oh, when do you need this? And I would get a response to say, oh, no rush, you can get it to me next week. So I was causing stress on myself when I didn't need to. And I had to have someone tell me that, to say, no, you're self-imposing those deadlines on yourself. So once I learned how to do that and push back and say, I can get this to you in 2 weeks, and I got a response, oh, that's fine, it's nothing urgent. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I could have been doing this all my life and reducing the stress that I was putting on myself. So you find out again what exactly is draining you, that's causing you to stress. And then step three is you need to choose what's the opposite of that drain. If it's saying yes all the time, then you need to start saying no. But you have to say no, but not let saying no overstep boundaries where you're saying no to things that you enjoy, or no to things that are required, but it's affecting your work negatively. So, one of the individuals that I've interacted with saying, I've learned how to say no, but then they found that they were saying no to everything, and it led to them, it affected them negatively. I'm like, well, you got to find that perfect balance. For example, if spending is one of the things that's draining you, you got to find that balance. You know, cut your spending in half by 50%. Don't say, okay, I'm just cutting it all out. There has to be a perfect balance in your reset framework. If the drain is chaos, then the opposite is structure. And if the drain is overspending, the opposite is intentional spending, that you have planning out your spending. So that's step three of the reset framework. And then step four is replace. You can't just delete a habit, you have to replace it. So again, it's creating that boundary, that routine, that new practice. A lot of my clients, their budget is eating, they eat out a lot, spend $500, $600, $800 on eating out. And my answer to that is don't just cut out eating out completely, reduce it. You know, cook at home or reduce your eating out budget. Instead of eating out 4 days a week, eat out 2 days a week and see how that affects you. But if that is overly stringent, go to 3 and see how that affects your budget and see what the benefits and the rewards are of you participating in the reset framework. Again, it's you still want to be able to enjoy life, but that's where step 5 comes in is reviewing what habit that you changed. You review it and you adjust to ensure that you have that standing meeting with yourself and that you are determining what the best version of you is going to be. You can't understand or realize what the best version of you is if you don't evaluate and make progress. In an organization, there are strategic goals. And sometimes those goals are for 1 to 3 years, they could be 5 years. But the organization does not leave those goals as is for 3 years. They evaluate those goals on a continual basis. It's either quarterly or annually. And then they determine where do they need to reset. Are these the right goals for us, for our organization? Or do we need to make adjustments and reset? And that's where the reset framework comes into play. If an organization changes its goals on a quarterly, yearly basis, then you also need to change your goals. So let's go put a step 1 is stop stressing out or doing what's not beneficial to you. 2, after you reassess that, you want to name what's draining you or what's stressing you out. And then you want to choose what's the opposite of your drain and then replace it and then review it and reset. So that's the whole framework and it works whether we're taking life, money, mindset, or anything in between. So I want you to try the reset framework and see if it works for you. It's worked for me. I'm constantly resetting my life. I even had an episode this weekend where I'm like looking at my budget, and that's what I do all the time. And I'm like, I don't want a budget. I'm tired. And it's because I work with finances all the time. But I took a step back and I was like, you know what? I just need to take a break, do something that I enjoy outside of finances, and figure out how I'm going to get motivated again. Now, there are times where you may do something that you enjoy and it overwhelms you and you're like, you don't want to do it. But then I came back to it and you may come back to it and you're like, okay, yeah, this is the right path. I'm ready to go again. So I got re-energized to do something that I love. It could be reading a book, y'all. It could be writing. It could be crocheting, whatever it is. Sometimes you're just like, I don't feel like doing this today. So let's make this real. I want you to pick one thing you know that's been draining you lately, just one. And you can even drop it in the comment. And let's talk about how you would walk through that using the reset framework. It could be you're cooking too much. It could be, again, you're constantly picking up the kids because they have a lot of sporting activities. Like what's one thing that you can do to determine what's draining you and how to stop it from draining you and how to choose the alternative and do a reset and review of what's draining you. Tapping in that spouse. If you're married, tap in that spouse to say, hey, this is really overwhelming me right now. Supporting the kids, I need a break. Can you pick them up after school? Can you take them to soccer practice? Can you take them to jujitsu practice, whatever that is? And having that spouse help support you as well. Now, it is a little bit difficult to have those conversations, but you have to take the time to have those conversations so that you aren't stressed out and depressed because you don't have that support. You have to have that accountability partner, whether or not it's your significant other, best friend, therapist, whatever it is. They can help you work through those situations and reduce the strain. So, I want to talk too about the natural shift to money. Let's go soft, not heavy. you know, Money is going to follow you all throughout your life. And when your life is chaotic, your money also may feel chaotic as well. But when you're grounded, your money stabilizes. So, this is why I coach the whole person and not just dollars. So, a lot of individuals come to me and they say, Annette, I have debt. Like, I don't know how I'm going to get out of debt, and I feel stuck. Well, when it comes to getting out of debt, there's a lot of things that are factored into that. So, first of all, it's your current take home pay that you have, and then it's the expenses that you have, your fixed expenses, your variable expenses. And how do you make adjustments for those expenses so that you have either a surplus or you work towards reducing that deficit? Now, if you've done everything that you can and you're still in the negative, there's like outside resources that I provide to say, hey, this is how you can adjust your debt that you have, that debt load. Now, the other thing that you can do is evaluate, okay, what are some passive income opportunities? A lot of clients that I work with, in order to increase their earning potential, they Uber, they do dog walking, they do a myriad of things to increase their income to help them get out of debt. Now, everybody doesn't have the time available to get a second job, but it could be starting your own company. What are you skilled at? You could start your own LLC. It's like $100 to start your own LLC. Once you identify what you're good at, and if you have the bandwidth to take that on, running your own business. Now, running your own business is not a passive activity. You do have to put the effort into it. I am 3 years into business. Hi, Cherry. Thank you very much. And my husband started his own business and he ended up just abandoning it. He was like, I did not know how much time you put into this business, to Facebook marketing, to constantly creating blog posts, to just thinking of different ways to attract and retain clients. So my husband's business was, he was a notary, but he was also a loan signing agent. I was like, you got to get out into the community. You have to create a Facebook page. You have to let the people know where you are. So if you're trying to increase your earning potential, you need to ensure that if you're starting your business, you are willing to put that time and effort into it. You have to establish a website so people know where to find you. You have to establish those community connections. And even when it comes to grant opportunities that are available, you have to put in that effort. A lot of the grant opportunities say, okay, how are you giving back to the community? Like, we're not just giving money just to anyone. Show us what your goodwill is towards the community. That's like small organizations like mine and even large organizations. They put millions of dollars back into the community because you're trying to seek a grant from the state or community-based agencies. They're going to say, okay, how are you going to maximize the income that you're giving you, and how are you going to give back to the community? So that's how I got two of the grants that I did get. With my financial literacy, I said, hey, I'm giving back to the youth in the community, but I'm also volunteering on the side with coaching, providing financial coaching services to military veterans, to women who have been victims of domestic violence, to individuals who are low income, and that's all been free of service. So again, if you're trying to increase your earning potential with income with starting a business, there's a lots of things that you have to be mindful of, that it's not easy unless you're doing printables and things like that. But even that takes effort. Like with my printables on Etsy, I put hours into those printables to create them. and it doesn't make a lot of money. It takes time for you to build that up. But again, like I said, I coach from a holistic perspective to say, okay, you're looking at your budget right now, but what are some other things that we can do to maximize the income and your earning potential? Whether or not that's upskilling you through free resources, for you volunteering in the community, or having a conversation with your supervisor to say, hey, these are some things that I contributed to throughout the year, and I feel that I deserve a promotion. Now, there's a way that you can talk to your supervisor about a promotion. First you have to show that you put the effort into affecting the organization and those goals that have been established. So it's having a detailed approach. And I do a PowerPoint presentation, y'all. So whenever I'm going for a promotion, I'm saying, this is what I've accomplished. This is how I impact the organization. This is how I see my future career within the organization, and how I see the makeup of my team. So when I present that presentation to my supervisors, I'm like, okay, you can't refute the evidence that I provided to you. You can't refute the goals that I've achieved. And this is the compensation that I'm seeking. Now, it's not 100% that you're going to receive that compensation, but you put everything you have on the table and what your expectations are. Now, I'll say this, I will put what my expectations are, and I put a little bit higher, so that I'm not, I like 90% certain they're not going to give it to me, but I'm like, if they meet me halfway, I know that I went big, and if I get that, you can't say that I didn't ask for it. So again, that's why I coach from a holistic approach to determine, okay, how can I maximize my income and find that sense of peace? Because let's face it, money can keep you up at night. If you don't know where your next meal is coming from, it's going to keep you up at night. If you can't pay for your children's school uniforms or sporting equipment, and you're going to have that conversation with them to say, I'm sorry, this isn't something that we can do right now, but let's probably push it off till next year. Again, I don't like to tell my clients to say no, but then saying, have that conversation and say, hey, this is what our finances look like. Kids, when you say no to them, that's all they're going to hear. But if you're saying, hey, mom and dad can't afford this right now, we have some other priorities, it will help children understand how to have money conversations as they get older, and to understand the concept that, money doesn't grow on trees, and that when you swipe a debit card or a credit card, that it's not a constant replenishment of things. So funny story, maybe not funny, and you've probably done it too. I was talking to my daughter who's 20 now, and she was like, Mommy, I remember like back in the day that you said that, do you have McDonald's money? So she wanted to go to McDonald's, and I was like, well, do you have McDonald's money? And she was like, I literally thought there was such a thing as McDonald's money. And I was like, oh, that's so sweet of you. But you also told me you thought it was black and white back in my day. So I don't really put too much stock in that. But again, it's all about having that conversation with children, and, being open about finances. And it not only will it help you, but it will help them as well when they ask you questions that you may not know the answer to. And then you have to go research it. That's going to help you, and it's going to help them as well. I want you to choose one of those actions that you'll commit to in the next 40 hours, in the next 24 hours, when it comes to that reset of what's draining you. It could be something small but intentional. You can drop it in the comments down below if you're watching the replay of this, and just acknowledge how you are evaluating what's draining you, and how you're going to stop it from draining you, and how you're going to review it and make adjustments in your life. So hit like so YouTube knows that you've watched this video, that this content matters, and share it with someone who needs a reset tonight as well. And I want to say thank you for being here with me, whether live or on the replay, and you showed up for yourself. And that's the first step toward any change that you have so that you can reduce the drain, because you deserve peace, you deserve clarity, and you're allowed to reset as many times as you need. I reset every single day. And I'll see you in the next live. So take care of yourself because you deserve it. We all deserve to reduce the drain, and peace.